Let's do this. Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David, how are you doing tonight?
It's a little bit of a down night in oil country, a little bit of a down night in
Duty.
oil country. 6-1 loss to the Kraken of Seattle. Wow. And what a horrible game. Whew. My goodness. How you doing?
Oh, well, I wasn't expecting much from this game, and I was still disappointed because they really delivered less than not much. One half decent first period. They had a goal call back that I think was a borderline but legit call. I think Brown, for whatever reason, swinging at a puck 7 feet off the ice, ticked it away from Vince Dunn, and Jeff Skinner's the one time he did bury one. That one came off the board, and then it just went completely into the toilet in the second frame. Seattle scoring 5 times, and a sixth that was called back on a marginal offside. And it was just
Horrible.
it was just a horrible display of defensive transitional everything, penalty killing. Didn't have a lot going on. To be fair, the Oilers, the travel schedule was pretty brutal. NHL decided, no, let's make them even though they had 3 days off before yesterday, let's have them play on our Wednesday night doubleheader game. Let's give it a real late start so we can get those people in the East that can watch the game at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. I still don't know what the hell they're doing with that. Anyway, the Oilers apparently got into Seattle this morning at 4 o'clock. And did it ever show? They just didn't have any life in their legs or in their heads.
Sleep is important, and disturbed sleep leads to poor performance. We certainly saw that tonight, Bruce. Maybe even more so in athletes who have to be at the edge of their performance level, pushing it to achieve in the NHL. Anyway, it's funny. Like our intro is by the faithful and for the faithful. Tonight, it will only be the super faithful tuning into this podcast. When the Oilers lose, there's a lot less readers of our game grades.
Okay,
a lot less. Oh yeah.
On the radio, they get more listeners after a loss. Apparently, people like to hear the rants about the losing ways. No,
we lose about.
I guess we don't rant hard enough.
30% of our traffic.
We're doing well if it's not more than that tonight, then. Thanks for listening, everyone who's left.
Yes, you are the faithful. You are the true faithful, the faithful of the faithful. Oh, come all ye faithful.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce. 2 good things, 2 bad things, 2 numbers. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, okay.
What's your good thing?
Yeah, I got one. I got Olivier Rodrigue. Edmonton Oilers now official NHL netminder. He came up in relief for Stuart Skinner, who took a wicked headshot from the knee or hip of Mikko Rantanen last night, left that game, and it was announced quickly, and it only ever made sense that he would not make this trip to Seattle because he wasn't going to play. And the idea was Rodrigue, who played last night in Bakersfield, would call up to back up, but he wouldn't play either. But once Cal Pickard got lit up for 5 goals in the second period, and looking at the very real chance that he would be playing again on Saturday against Calgary, Pickard, the only decision was to take him out and put in Rodrigue for the third. And I'll give the kid credit. This was he had a demon display of his own in Climate Pledge Arena, where he played his last preseason game this year, and he got absolutely destroyed. He lost his chance at winning an NHL job with an awful performance in the last or second last. It was certainly his last preseason game, and they got stomped, and he had a really tough night. But he came in and right away. His very first NHL shot was a wicked drive off of the one-timer off the stick of former 40 goal scorer Jared McCann. I mean, welcome to the show, son. And somehow came flying across. Like he had his big lateral movement. And not only did he make the save, but he completely squelched the rebound under his pads somehow. Fantastic save for his first NHL save. Like, very impressive. And then, not 10 seconds later, on the subsequent face-off, he was head-to-head with McCann a second time, stoned him a second time, and made a couple other good stops in the third. And the one that beat him was just an unreal play again by McCann, and a weird one where the puck kind of got deflected up and over the crease from one side to the other, and before it even got down to the ice, McCann spun and whacked it out of the air, uh, bounced it off the ice and just inside the post. I don't think there's any goalie that's going to be able to deal with that. So not quite a shutout, and officially, I think his numbers were 875 save percentage, which looks depressingly familiar to Oil fans, but I actually thought he was good. And good on you for taking your first chance and showing well, Olivier Rodrigue.
He looks sharp, and I was glad to see him in the game. Like, I think they should play him in another game. They should just play him and see what he has, because they might need him in the playoffs if someone gets hurt. This is where they are. He's the third guy, so let's see what he can do. He did have 2 good years in the AHL. He's having a weak year, but he's on a really weak defensive team with low quality defensemen.
Yeah.
In the AHL this year. So yeah, you never know. Like, sometimes goalies catch fire in the playoffs. It's happened many times where unknown goalies catch fire, play really well. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him get a few more games, like get a game or two.
Well, it depends. If Skinner's back, then he's an emergency recall and he goes down. But if Skinner's not back, then maybe at the same time the Oilers got to win some games, man. They got to get some points. Like, they are not close to mathematically clinched in the playoffs, and the direction that they're going is not the good one.
That's a good point. Maybe they'll be surpassed by the St. Louis Blues. All right, Bruce.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be depressing.
Yeah.
Okay. My good thing is Jeff Skinner, Bruce, he's looking good. He's hustling. So the grade A shots in this game were 18-13 for Seattle, but the subset of 5 alarm shots, the most dangerous shots, were 12-4 for the Kraken. So they just really slaughtered the Oilers. The Oilers gave up usually about 7 5-alarm shots. They gave up 12 tonight. So, but Skinner, of the 13 grade A shots that the Oilers mustered, Skinner was in on 7 of them, and he actually launched at the net 5 of them himself, 5 of his shots. And that doesn't include the goal that was called back. And Bruce, I still do not see the touching of the puck. I know they have to be certain from the video. I don't know what the on-ice call was. Was the on-ice call?
The on-ice call was a goal.
Okay, so they had to be certain from the replay. So they must have seen something.
I did.
I just don't see it. You see it? I don't see it.
I saw it.
Anyway.
Yeah, he reached out. He tapped the puck back away from the goal line and back towards Skinner. It didn't go very far, but the camera angle was very deceptive. But I saw 2 different angles and just didn't touch it by much. But Dunn had his glove out and was going to pull it down, Vince Dunn. And all of a sudden, the puck wasn't where he thought it was, and Skinner had it and scored. And right away, Dunn was going to the ref saying, "Hey," and they looked at it and they called it. It was marginal, but with a high stick, it's literally a touch is all you need.
If you saw it and the ref saw it, I'll go with that, even though I didn't see it.
Whereas the penalty on Evan Bouchard in the first period, the ref saw it and I didn't see it. Man, oh man, is that a phantom call or what? There was a few few questionable ones, but I thought the one on there was a disallowed goal each way, and I thought both cases they got the call right.
So Skinner this is a big development for the Oilers. It's really big because they need this guy to perform, and he is starting to perform.
Yeah,
He's
he played
making
really
sharp
well.
offensive reads. His defense has been good. It was weak. It's been weak through the year, but it's been better lately. He seems to be more intense, more involved in the game, skating better, more confident. And this little string of games, I think, is really good for the whole team. It tells them about who they are without their best players and about the way that they need to play to win. And I think it's going to really reinforce the notion that they've got to be better. This group of players who are on the ice tonight have got to be better defensively and really shut it down on defense. Well, Skinner's doing that, and he's a super solid attacker. I do think there's a like a coin flip of a chance, 50-50 chance that he's on the top line with Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman in the playoffs. I think they like Nugent Hopkins at center, and I think it's working. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a second line of Andrew Kane and Arvidsson with Draisaitl, and a third line of, so you have Skinner, Hyman, and McDavid on the top line, and then the third line, it's kind of hard to tell what's going to happen, but probably Nugent Hopkins, Brown, and I'm not sure who else will be on that third line, but anyway, the top two lines, Skinner could well be there, Bruce, and that's a huge development if he can be there and start to score. Like he's a Jordan Eberle kind of player, I think, and we saw Eberle tonight be involved in a lot of the chances. So I have the third line as Frederick, Nugent Hopkins, and Brown, and the fourth line is Podkolzin and Henrique and Perry with Janmark, the extra player, which I don't think would actually happen. I think Janmark would probably play over Podkolzin if they're all healthy, but they're not going to all be healthy. So they have
Apparently not.
13 deep though for I think pretty good forwards on the team. And then you get to Kapanen and Ryan, and Jones and Philp after that. But this is big, Bruce. It could be a really big thing if he can figure out a way to start coming through in big games. And it's starting to happen a little bit. He's starting to really assert himself. So I'm more positive about Skinner than I've been at any other time this year.
He was by far Edmonton's most dangerous player tonight. Not close. 5 grade A shots he was involved in. And the 6th that, of course, was uncredited because the play was real dead was the one he put past Joey DeCore. Really nice backhand shot. Roofed it, but that came off the board. But
Bruce, let's move on to our bad things. And why don't I go first, because mine's kind of the first goal against. This was just like last game where the Oilers came out and they played a really good first period. This first period they had 5 grade A shots to just 1 for the Kraken. And the Kraken didn't score, unlike Dallas on their 1 grade A shot, I think, in the first period last game. So it's a good first period. They've really played hard. They played well defensively. They've done everything right for a road game. And then there's a penalty. I can't remember if it was deserved or not. I have a feeling it was kind of a cheap one. But anyway, they're out there on the penalty kill. And veteran Adam Henrique just gets pulled right out of position. Puck, Seattle has kind of an umbrella formation, defenseman right in the middle of the blue line at the top with 2 wingers, two players on either side he can pass to. And it's foolish to rush out there at the defenseman because he's got 2 passes he can make, one or the other, and it's wide open. And it's just, you rush out there, you're going to get passed around. You've got to be passive in that moment. You've got to wait and read, not try to make the big play, wait and read the play. So rushing out there was just, I don't know why Henrique did it, but once he did it and they got beat on the pass, they had a 4-on-3 down low and they just picked them apart. Bang, 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 and it's in the net. The other players, made marginal mistakes, trying to recover from the sequence of pain that Henrique initiated with his rash move at the blue line. And as soon as it happened, I just had this feeling of doom, like, oh God, here we go again. And here we went.
Yep, another black hole second period. They've had a few of those lately. It was their best period until a month ago.
Yeah.
But recently they've had, the last two nights they were outscored 8-0. 2 second periods. Enough said.
There were some ugly, there were some ugly goals, hey Bruce, in the second period. Wow, there were some ugly ones.
Yeah, my bad thing. It's more generic, and it's basically the open house that Edmonton Oilers held in their defensive slot tonight. In terms of their coverage, it was odd man rushes, it was cross seam passes galore, it was unmarked guys getting deflections from right in front. Their defensive play was just, I thought, brutal in this game. Just brutal. And
what was your worst goal, Bruce, other than the one I just enunciated? What's the moment that stands out for you? Which one? Because I have one that also stands out. Which maybe it's the same one.
Well,
minus
the second goal where Wallman just passed it right to the goal scorer, Jordan Schmaltz. Here, he's just scored on you, and he's scored on you every friggin' game for the whole time that they've had a team. Let's pass it to him again in the slot and let him just pound one home. So yeah, that one kind of stands out. We couldn't figure out. It was hard to tell if Podkolzin somehow should have done more than he did, but Wallman passed it right past him and right onto the stick of Schmaltz, and he just said, "Thank you very much." And of course, there was no coverage coming from anywhere else. He just walked into the slot and slammed it home. So
I think that Podkolzin didn't have a stick on the ice, so but it was hard to tell if the puck was in the air or not.
Yeah, it looked like he was kind of swatting at it or something, but it sure came down onto Schwartz's stick, and of course, the Schwartz was with him.
Yeah, it's not Schmaltz, it's Schwartz. One of those guys. Jaden Schwartz, okay.
Yeah, Jaden Schwartz.
For me, it was that
23rd of the year.
That fifth goal, Bruce, man, that was horrendous. Like, Emberson gets the puck in the corner and just fumbles. Like, he hammers it up the boards. So Stetcher can't control it because Emberson's fumbled the puck and hammered it.
And then Stetcher is not a right wing who knows how to make that play of taking the puck off the boards and getting it out. And he
even worse, blown the zone. For Darnell Nurse has blown the zone.
Yeah,
he's anticipating it's going out. So Kapanen is left to cover for him. Never trust the forward. Kapanen, both Nurse and Kapanen are way out when the puck's passed into the slot area.
Yeah. It was, like I say, open house. Choose your smorgasbord. Choose your scoring opportunity. You want to make a couple cross seam passes? You just want a free shot from the slot? How about a deflection from outside shot on an unmolested player right in front? Was
what it was like,
all
Bruce?
Those things, man, oh man.
You know what it was like on Halloween. Let's say you have a big bowl of candy that's full of chocolate bars, and the kids come up and you can say, "Oh, just pick what you want." And some kid reaches in and takes 8 chocolate bars. That was Seattle.
Yeah, no, they were feasting for sure, and good on them. They played a strong game, and no doubt it felt pretty good for them having lost 8 straight games to Edmonton before this one. And so they got a measure of revenge. Of course, they did win that preseason game, but that's, of course, doesn't count in the ledger. But in regular season, they've had a couple of real barren years against the Oilers, so must have felt good for them. They played well, but they were playing against air a lot of the time.
How did you remember that they won a preseason? Like, who remembers that they won?
That was the Olivier Rodrigue reference I made earlier.
Okay.
He got crushed in Seattle in his previous appearance for Edmonton, so he had a personal demons to slay right in that very rink. So that was where I pulled that out of my.
All right. Kid looked good. He looked good. He looked like
he did. Yeah. I'm giving him a good grade. Him and Skinner. Everyone
If he was
else, not so much.
if he was like 6'4", 220, he'd probably be in the NHL right now. And everyone like, because he's a small goalie, I think it's
Yep.
harder for him to make an impact. Everyone that no one really trusts him. So he's really going to have to be good to make it in the NHL. But again,
Yep.
he was really good in the AHL 2 years running. Good enough
Mhm.
that you think maybe it could even be could have been the backup this year. But
But he had that
he
terrible game, and that was that.
yeah, he wasn't going to be
Pickard never did have
anyway.
a game like that.
Pickard had the contract. Rodrigue was going to beat him out. So, and I'm fine with that. But
Mhm.
he might be a good goalie. Like we just don't know where he's at. So be interested. I've not heard Kevin Woodley talk about him. Kevin Woodley's the great goalie expert in the NHL. And be interesting to see how he rates Olivier Rodrigue.
Yeah, it
All
might
right.
come up on Monday when he's next on Gregor's show every Monday. Kevin Woodley is, and his section's always an excellent listen. He's a real expert on the net
Well,
mining profession.
was he the one who explained what was going wrong with Stuart Skinner's?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
You wrote about him
yeah, that's
a
right.
couple
That
weeks
was
ago.
Woodley
The
who
the
explained it
Skinner falling on his face
perfectly.
thing, which by the way is
Yeah,
exactly what happened when he got hurt last night. He was falling forward as Rantanen was trying to go around him. And so I personally give Rantanen a bit of a pass there. It wasn't like he sort of deliberately didn't go out of his way to miss him. He was trying to miss him, and Skinner kind of fell into him. So
yeah. We'll talk a bit more about that in a sec, right at
sure,
the end of the podcast.
sure.
Bruce, what's your number?
Yeah, my number is 7, which is now the number of points that the Oilers are ahead of or in the playoffs by.
Wow.
Oilers have 87 points, 10 games left. And down there in ninth place is Vancouver Canucks with 80 points, also 10 games left. Calgary Flames, 79 points with 11 games left.
Wow.
And that gap
Not over.
is not comfortable for me. I just don't feel comfortable with that because, you know, it's not like the other team's got to win 9 in a row to catch up to you. You got to win some games. And
Yeah.
you got to win some games. You got to get some points. And they've had too many regulation losses. And, now they're spinning their wheels and they got, 3 of their starting goalie, I would argue their best defenseman, their 2 best forwards, all on the shelf, plus other guys. And the cracks are showing.
Sure
And
are.
I hate to say it, but, they the argument has been for years, well, the Oilers are a 2-man team, and beyond that, they don't have the depth. Well, we're seeing what's left without those 2 guys there, and they beat Seattle 5-4. They came back and gave Dallas sort of a game after falling apart partway through it, and then tonight, and they got some good players, but there's they're not really looking like a contender, are they? And the margin, by the way, was 12 points on February 8th when they broke for 4 nations. At that point, Edmonton had 72 points, and I think it was Calgary that was in ninth with 60, and then the next team after them had 55. So there was just one team, and now there's sort of 2 teams hovering there. That if the Oilers don't start putting some more points in the bank, they got to win some games to get in. Because there's no way both Calgary and Vancouver are going to go 3-6-1 down the stretch, right? So I mean, they should get in. They got a 7-point lead, but it's not exactly money in the bank. And for all this talk about getting home ice against Los Angeles, well, step 1 is to make the friggin' playoffs. And I'm more nervous this year than I have been in several on that front.
Chris, my numbers are plus 21 and plus 20. Plus 21 is Philip Broberg plus minus in St. Louis. Dylan Holloway's is plus 20.
Mhm.
The Broberg's tied with Jordan Tower for the lead. Only Oiler with a higher plus minus is Leon
Leon.
Draisaitl plus. The only Oiler with a higher plus minus than Leon Draisaitl. So in terms of how this turned out, um, this is like in terms of like the worst case scenario of what you were going to lose, because there was always a chance that Broberg and Holloway would take a step back, right? One or
Mhm.
the other or both,
Yep.
and not live up to their contracts. So they're both crushing it. They are crushing it in St. Louis. And it's really starting to drive Oiler fans crazy. Comes up all the time
Oh yeah.
in thoughts in about what's happened to this team. Now it's nice to see again Skinner stepping up, and Arvidsson's may well in the playoffs too. Like it's not too late for either of these players to make a big impact and justify. It's not just them though. Like they signed Henrique for a lot of money. They signed Janmark for a decent amount of money. Perry a little bit, not that much money, but um,
They signed a bunch of 32 and 34 and 38-year-olds.
really
That's what they
did,
signed.
which was fine as long as you knew for sure you're going to sign Holloway and Broberg, and the fact that those contracts were done before they took care of business and signed those two young players. And it's a real blemish on Jeff Jackson's record. And I know Holland gets heat as well. I think deservedly so. He could have done those deals maybe earlier, but really it's Jackson's call in the summer about where that cap space is going. And you could also say Stan Bowman. Um,
Could have
again,
matched
I
on Holloway.
could have matched
I
on
don't
Holly,
think he
but
could have
again, I think
matched on both really, but he could have matched
yeah,
on
I don't think.
Holloway 2.3.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, I was just
They're
rereading the
both covering the
stories that I
bet
wrote.
that St. Louis put in them. And you know what happened tonight?
Oh,
St. Louis.
and then some, Bruce, and then some. Like
Oh
they're
yeah.
like,
Oh,
yeah,
Holloway's playing like a $5+ million forward right now.
yeah. Like if he
Anyway,
if he was signing a new deal, what would he get? Like 7 million a year? Yeah,
if they do an extension with him, his next deal, it's going to be an
yeah.
8-figure deal probably for a lot of years. Anyway, tonight they were down 2-0 to Nashville. Holloway scores to cut the margin to 2-1. They tie it 2-2, 8 minutes left in the third. Holloway scores again, and St. Louis wins 3-2. It's not like he's on the team that's hot. He's driving it. He's up to 26 goals now and 62 points.
All right. So at some point we'll have to make a vow not to raise this again because what's done is done. But that's not how it works when you're a sports fan. You just kind of wallow in it forever. Like you just never let it go. None of us do. So
Well, it's one thing to sort of talk about it day after day, but when you look in the summaries and you see stuff like that, game after, last game Broberg got a goal and 3 assists for them,
yeah.
and then Holloway had a couple points in that game. So they're actually, and St. Louis is on a tremendous hot streak. They moved into a playoff spot. They were way down on February 8th at the break. They were down at 55 points. And Edmonton was at 72 at that time. And now they're all the way up to 85. They're 2 behind Edmonton. Right? They were 17 behind at the Four Nations, and they're 2 behind right now, St. Louis Blues.
Well, Binnington's probably hot as a pistol.
No, they got fewer games left. They've only got 8 games left, but they've been winning all their games. I think they won 8 in a row.
Well, the only thing we can say about the Oilers is they're missing their first and second line center. They're missing their second line winger in Kane. They're missing their third line winger in Frederick. Missing their top defenseman is top goalie Skinner, top defenseman Ekholm. So this team is,
In theory,
it's in theory this team, but Bruce, it's health. The health of this is the problem with having an older team, right?
yes, it
They
is.
tend to get more injured. They're more broken down hockey players as you get older, and that's what slows these guys down and takes the oomph out of their game. So it's just super crucial for this team to get healthy. And now they, as you say, they have this added pressure of trying to make the playoffs. Bruce, I was going to bring this up, so I wrote a couple different posts today, but the one I'll talk about is what Ray Ferraro said, because Ray Ferraro is I think he's the top analyst in the NHL. I think he makes the most sense of any analyst that I listen to consistently. And when he's analyzing a play, for instance, like you and I, we analyze plays seriously. We take we put a lot of effort into it. We look at every grade A shot, look at them repeatedly. We discuss them. Are they a grade A shot? Are they a 5-alarm shot? Who's involved? Who isn't involved? We've got a system to figure this out. We've been doing it for years, so we take this seriously. But if Ray Ferraro looks at a replay and says, "This is what I see, and this is who's to blame and who isn't," then I'll set aside whatever I think and go with him, because he is the sharpest NHL announcer. So what he was saying today is he was talking about the Rantanen play, and he agreed that it wasn't a dirty play. He just thought Rantanen was going for the puck. But he just was talking about the lack of pushback from the Oilers on the play, and no one coming after Rantanen. And what he had to say is this quote. He was talking about the Oilers putting together this team this past summer, Jackson and Bowman, to a lesser extent. And he says, quote, "Maybe the Oilers management, didn't think this through with roster construction enough. Maybe you need to be heftier. Maybe you need to be a little bigger." And I would say that's a pretty fair view of their team. I mean, to go back again, you go back to July 1st and they signed Skinner and Arvidsson, who are both 5'9". You could have addressed that with bigger people if you thought down the road this could be a concern. They also that also led into Broberg Holloway thing. That's something different. But your roster construction basically tells you what kind of team you've got, what you're able to do. So it's a real fair comment, and it's right on the nose. Now, the rebuttal to that is, they are going to get bigger. Matthias Ekholm, Evander Kane, Trent Frederick, all bigger players are coming back.
If they ever come back.
Yeah.
Frederick, they're still saying he's still well over a week away from even skating with the team, never mind in the actual game. So
this just makes me fear it's like Troy, like Stetcher last year. They traded for Stetcher at the deadline, played some games, but he had to shut it down before the playoffs because he had an ankle cyst, which he had when he got here. And he couldn't perform. And he didn't play well when he did play. He's playing much better this year. Yeah. But have they done it? Has this happened again? It's very. It's alarming.
Robbie Yarventi is another one. They traded for him, and he played 2 games for Bakersfield this year. 2 games. He was coming off knee surgery, and he, wasn't better. Still isn't better. So Arvidsson's listed as 5'10", by the way, and Skinner at 5'11", but they're not exactly big bangers. And the Oilers lost bigger players, and they lost younger players, and they lost faster players. So all of those things. So
maybe Ray, who's about 5'9", has met them in their street clothes and looked them eye to eye. He's giving us the truth. Listen, I don't mind either of these players, Skinner or Arvidsson. I think they're both can help the Oilers win in the playoffs. Man, this Holloway thing is really it's hard to get out of your mind.
Yeah, well, when they targeted top 6 swingers on the first day of free agency after Holloway had actually played in that role in the Stanley Cup Finals, and they spent the money and they brought in these other guys, and we talked about this last time, so let's not really dwell on it. Back to Ferraro, one thing that's always impressed me about him, right from when he started doing color, doing Oilers games, way back when, before the lost season, and you talk about him describing replays. Well, he would do the replays. He'd watch the live play, and he would do the replays, and he would know what everybody involved in the play had done.
Yeah.
And he said defenseman, when it took a step too far this way and he got burned. And I always thought he had a better clue of what the goalies were doing than all those goalie analysts that they had that were, all those goalie analysts, Glenn Healy and Kelly Rudy and Greg Millen, and there's a few others anyway. And I thought Ferraro understood the physics of the goaltending position better than any of them.
There's Bieksa is also really good. So there's a couple of Bieksa and Ferraro are outstanding at breaking down plays. Like they know hockey inside out, outside down. And it's funny the gap between them and most other announcers, because all these other guys put in the NHL too. But whether it's a matter of being able to articulate it or to see it, or like they just see the game and are able to articulate it at a different level. They're like McDavid and Draisaitl compared to the rest of the league of play-by-play color people, because they just are so much better at telling here's what happened. So I really appreciate them. They're fantastic at their jobs. I have a lot of admiration for them. All right. Tomorrow, what's the next game, Bruce? Saturday
against the Flames, home game for the Oilers. Of course, they got to turn around and fly back, and we don't know Skinner's status. We don't know Ekholm's status. It's almost certain that McDavid won't be back. It's possible that Leon might have seen the two losses and thinking, I need to get back in there, which is, wouldn't be wrong if he's able. So that's the one thing, development that could occur. But,
well, he was initially described as day-to-day, for what that's worth, because the Oilers, like, Arvidsson was day-to-day.
And he skated on yesterday morning. Game day yesterday morning, Leon did. And Leon Connor, did. The news just seems to keep getting worse, in terms of, it's like Frederick, right? Last week he was a week away, and now he's 2 weeks away. Like, hey, wait a minute. Shouldn't he be back? Instead of numbers not even getting shorter, it's getting longer.
So. It's like, hey, what did you guys, what's going on there? We're on to you now. All right, let's see. Yeah. I don't on some level, I don't really like. It's like I see they have to be secretive, and they're secretive, and sometimes they don't know, like, the injury. You just don't know how people are going to respond and how quickly the injury will come around. Like, there's guesswork here, so this is an exact science. It's not like
human body is
hugely worked up about this, but I am worked about what happened to Stetcher last year, and I'm worried. That's what I'm worried about with Frederick. Like, that does maybe alarm me a bit, and it does make me wonder about the it's a hard thing to gauge. Like, I don't want to be overly critical of them on these things, because it's probably difficult. And he is, like, if he is like, I've seen Trent Frederick play, he is what they need. Like, he'll add a lot if he can come close to playing his A game. He's a really aggressive, nasty, and effective hockey player. But it looks like he had a down year in Boston all year. Right. And I wonder if it was always due to injury, and maybe now he's trying to get over it.
Well, the injury did happen on a very specific play, though, and there's a replay of it.
Yeah, later in the year. That's right.
Yeah, and he had a bad collision into the boards. He got up, he limped off, and he hasn't played since. So it's doubtful that he aggravated something that he already had, but he clearly wasn't quite as at the level he was the previous 2 years, and then that happened. So who knows what Oilers will get if and when he returns.
All right, Bruce. Well, maybe we'll see. This is an interesting season. I was just thinking, like, when we finally do get to the playoffs, like, it'll be very interesting for the Oilers, because I remember someone saying, like, when you lose in the playoffs, it's the fun of losing. It's just like the immediate thought is, like, how much hard work it took to get there, to that place, and then you got to go through it all over again, another season, another grinding season to get there. But they're almost there. They're almost in the playoffs, and I'm not particularly concerned. I know it would be nice to have the home ice in Game 7. I think if the Oilers are going to win the Cup, they can't go to game sevens. They've got to start winning these series. They've got to take care of business in a way they haven't necessarily done always in the past. Maybe that's too much to ask of this team. Maybe it's not good enough to do it. But if they're going to win, they've got to do it. And I think they can, Bruce. I think there is the makings of an outstanding team here, um, especially in the playoffs. And it's just a matter of playing championship defense, being healthy, and the rest will come. But those two things are really hard. The health thing's hard, and the championship defense is hard for this group of players. But they can do it, and they have done it. So we'll see.
Well, when they did win their cups way back when, they lost 4, 3, 5, 2, and 6 games throughout the entirety of the playoffs. So it was either 15 or 16 wins and a small handful of losses, as opposed to 2006 when they went, I think, 15-9 and last year 15-10. And there was this longer series, and it just takes more of a toll. Like in their 5 cup seasons, the Oilers went 7 games, I think 3 times only in like 5 playoff years. Last year they had 2 game 7s, 1-1.
Yeah, it's just playoff hockey is brutal, and
it's attrition.
It is. So they've got to get through it. They've got to get through these. When they're playing these, if they get through to this, like let's say the division finals, they've got to, if they've played 14 games, they're going to be really tough. But if they've played 10 games, then they've got a real chance, I think. So, Bruce, let's leave it there, and we'll talk again Saturday.
Just one last item, Bob Stauffer. We brought this up yesterday, or I did, about Josh Brown and Travis Dermott. And both of them apparently potentially on leave from the team, according to Stauffer. Now, I got the second hand. I didn't hear exactly what he said, but it had something to do with their wives, both dealing with some kind of difficult pregnancies.
Oh.
And so that apparently, they are away with leave. But it's sure leaves a mess down there in Baco where, Phil Kemp is injured. They traded Max Wanner, they traded Ben Gleason, they traded Noah Hofmeyer, and there's just not a lot of pro defensemen left to lean on down there.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thanks, Bruce, for that update, and thanks for talking tonight.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.